早上好，年初三，大家，这个我刚刚祝大家年初三三阳开泰。
哇 ，The Chinese term I only can say 恭喜发财。
还有你后面那个，听说是
年年有余啊，万事如意啊。
对，右边年年有余，万事如意，恭喜发财，红包拿来。我觉得2021年呢，这个红包应该就是健康。
It's all about health，
是吧？所以今天呢，我们的节目啊，在年初三很难得，我几乎忘了。我昨天还问自己，今天前天我说，我们这个星期天有做节目吗？我突然间自己在那边想象，年初三应该可以休息吧，不要那么提早起床，还是可以赖床一下，还是什么？后来想，没有，我们今天还邀请了一位嘉宾，他是远自澳洲的黄金海岸的一位嘉宾。
So we have our special guest coming all the way from Australia, Gold Coast. She has been on our show before in the previous show together with Dr. Lee. So she'll be sharing with us a lot about how the heart works, and especially during this period about Valentine's Day as well. Oh, by the way, Happy Valentine's Day.
对，情人节快乐，情人节快乐！今天大家也可以用我们这个平台来跟大家拜个年，因为今年的这个新年应该有很多的局限吧，只能够有8人一组，最多8人一组，然后一天不能超过，是吧
？You can only
one 5个人吗？还是8个人
？8 person. That's for phase 3, and you can only visit 2 households per head.
对，只能够2次。
对 ，twice
2趟。所以我今年干脆我就不拜年了，就打个电话问候，我就打电话问候一下阿姨呀。然后待会儿呢是有一个聚餐，我们不把它当成是一个拜年，所以大家可以趁今天我们这个1个小时的时间呢，在线上跟大家拜年，或者是情人节有什么祝语啊，可以跟大家说。然后呢，也顺便可以借这个平台，然后传送出去，送给你亲爱的家人和朋友。因为我们要聊的是，我们还是会谈心我们谈心，可是这个心会深入一点，会讲到我们的心脏。
We'll go deeper into the basis of the heart. In actual fact, in Chinese, there's this thing called 心理病, right? Which is actually basically based on psychology, but it's related to the heart as well. All right.
对，心理疾病。
Okay, so I'm going to invite Dr. Olivia in right now.
让我们邀请 Dr. Olivia.
Welcome, Dr. Olivia.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be back.
Olivia 还记得 Olivia 吧？去年呢，她也曾经上过我们的节目，我们聊的还不够尽兴，所以呢，今年我们再次邀请 Olivia 也答应了我们她现在是人在黄金海岸 Gold Coast, and she will try to visit us a little bit more often.
She'll be with us almost every month.
Yay! And you'll be, are you going to station in Gold Coast for the rest of the months?
So we're not allowed to leave Australia unless there's some very, very pressing reason. So I won't be leaving Australia till 2021, where hopefully I'll be moving back to LA. So that's...
You mean 2022?
2022, gosh, yeah. It's time I joined 2021, hey? Yeah, 2022. And then hopefully I'll be moving back to LA.
Okay. So for currently you'll be enjoying the Gold Coast sun.
Yes,
How's,
it's a terrible
how's the weather?
Terrible place to see out the rest of the year. It's amazing. We're so lucky. We haven't experienced any... Basically in Queensland, it's like this business as usual. There are no restrictions on us. We don't even have to wear masks. It's as if we haven't had coronavirus in Queensland.
Oh,
interesting. Okay, that's
So
very lucky. Is that why you chosen there?
No, this is where I live anyway. We just happen to be really lucky. Yeah, whereas down in Melbourne and Sydney, they've had much harder restrictions.
Yeah, because my friend in Melbourne has, I just received some news from her a few days ago as a lockdown.
Yeah,
there's a lockdown. Again. It's for the fourth time.
Yeah, so mental health down south is much worse. Here on the Gold Coast in Brisbane, I mean, I was out at a bar last night. Restaurants, no problem. You know, the only thing that we have to do is to check in by a QR code every time we go to a restaurant or bar, just so they can do contact tracing. But apart from that, there has been no issues. So
okay.
Yeah, we're really lucky.
Good for you.
All right. So let's talk about heart.
Yes.
Tell us more.
今天这个 okay, maybe from your point of view, I think today Dr. Olivia is going to go more in depth to the heart issue. Right, like what caused some heart problems, all that.
Yeah. So look, cardiovascular disease or heart attacks, let's just say, so a heart attack is where you don't get enough oxygen to the heart, right? And it basically you start to get damage to the heart cells. But cardiovascular disease is not just heart attacks, but it's also about calcification of your arteries, and so there's not enough blood being flowing through the heart, for example. So let's talk about cardiovascular disease as a big category, and this is probably one of the top 3 killers in most, if not all, first world countries. So definitely Australia, definitely the US, the UK, and I'm going to guess in Singapore as well. So the question is, why do we have such bad cardiovascular disease in first world countries? Of course, the obvious answers are what we eat, what we're not eating, stress levels, and exercise. So if we know that these things are, a lot of it is lifestyle, then that means that we can do something about it, and we should do something about it, because cardiovascular disease doesn't exist by itself. You're going to have issues with the risk of stroke, for example, if you're not careful. So let's talk maybe about the link between cardiovascular disease and stress. Everybody knows that if you have high stress levels, there is a chance that you're going to have angina, which is heart pain, or that you run the risk of a heart attack if your vessels are already, a little bit crunchy, or if you've got plaques, and so there's not very good heart flow. So how is it that stress affects the heart?
Okay.
Everybody knows about cortisol levels, and I think that it's really important to know that your body, when it comes to stress, it's a very primal, very evolutionarily based system. In other words, your body doesn't know the difference if you are being hunted by a saber-toothed tiger, or if you're stressed because you lost your car keys. It is the same hormones, it is the same chemicals that are being released. Cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline. So when you're stressing out about an appointment, you're stressing about your kids, and you're stressing about, you've got a mark on your white shirt, just know that these are chemicals flowing through your body that you're, generally speaking, from an evolutionary perspective, not meant to have flowing through your body 24/7. It's meant to be short bursts when you're on the hunt, when you're going through a famine, when it's coming to winter and you need to move the entire tribe to an area that's warmer, something like that. But it's not meant to be in your body 24 hours a day.
So how do we become 24 hours a day for us? That's the main thing I believe Chu Qians are looking to ask you.
Yeah. I mean, look
there's
around
ways of helping us.
Yeah. Well,
because I've looked through what Olivia have provided us. Later on, we have some very interesting charts. Like there is one part which I'm obviously happy to know about it. Like the meditation is a better way of just one of the way that helping all this heart disease than controlling it. I mean, it's from findings. It's from figures.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's lifestyle.
100%. So I'm not someone who doesn't prescribe medications for my patients. Of course I do. But if you're being prescribed a medication and there is nothing else that changes in your life, what you're doing is putting a band-aid on those symptoms. Your body is trying to talk to you. Your body is trying to tell you to stop stressing less. Your body is trying to tell you to eat better. Your body is trying to tell you to exercise more, or whatever the message may be. But if you choose to ignore it and use a medication as a band-aid, at some point that band-aid is going to fall off. Because you haven't changed why you're getting sick. You haven't changed why you have cardiovascular issues. You haven't changed why there's plaques in the arteries surrounding your heart. So I think that it is a big disservice to the general population, to all our patients, if we just give them drugs and don't help them to overcome why it is they got sick in the first place. Because you can never truly get well if you stay in the system that got you sick in the beginning. So, I mean, just looking around, the fact that we're in this rat race, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, that we're living in isolation, not in a communal space anymore, the fact that all our food is not being grown by us, that we don't have a connection to the land, that we are surrounded with pollution and plastics. I mean, where do you start with why we're here where we are? But we are. So what can we do better? Definitely meditation plays a huge role. And everybody thinks of meditation as being something that is laborious and that you have to be wearing orange robes and sat in front of incense for hours and hours. But at the end of the day, meditation is whatever it is that gets you into the zone or that headspace. For me, it's gardening.
Let's change the concept. Wow, such a good example here. That's why I don't have a big house, but recently, because since we are not traveling, I just turned my one corner of my kitchen into a small garden.
Yes.
I bought plants that I got no clue with. But but it's a lot of tests and trial and tests. Then the good thing is I got to learn to know more about these plants at Google, and then I asked the nursery, why my this plant it's like, am I watering too much or what? Then they share with me how should I grow together with the plants, and I'm having a good time with all these plants. Yeah.
Soon you're gonna have your tomato, your lady's fingers, maybe your own pedal field too.
I love gardening for precisely that reason. When I first started gardening, and when I say gardening, I don't actually have a garden. I have an apartment as well, and the most expensive thing in my apartment were my plants. I had over $3,000 worth of plants in my apartment at one stage.
Ooh.
Whoa!
And it's because I bought this little 2-bedroom apartment down south Gold Coast, and it had beautiful views of the beach. But I wanted to curate my space, exactly like what you've done, Zhu Jian.
That's the word.
Yeah, curate the space. And one of the things I did was I had no TV.
Oh, okay.
Me too.
Yeah. No
TV.
And not having a TV is like not having Facebook. You don't miss it when you don't have it, but when you have it, you're on it all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I find anyway. So I had no TV. It was just books, plants, and I had an old school record player. And so I started buying old school records and playing them and learning to clean them and all that. It was just, I thought to myself, I want to do something different. And I did, and it was amazing. And like you, I had no idea about plants when I first started. I'm not gonna lie, I killed quite a few. And after
me too.
and
Me
after
too.
a while though, I became the person in my group of friends who was the plant lady. So if you had any issues, you would call me to ask what do I do and all that. And I would spend hours every weekend repotting plants into bigger, pots and moving things around. And
Yay! Hey, high five!
it was great, but that was my meditation. You're getting in there and you're moving the soil around, and you don't do this because so when you're doing something like this, I know it seems maybe people think it's mindless, but actually, yeah, it's fine. It's mindless, but I'm not doing it and thinking about the troubles at work. It's almost impossible to do that, two things at the same time. So I do daydream maybe, but when you've got purpose in doing something like this, a lot of the time I'm focused on the task, and also my mind is just, it's blank, and I'm touching something living as well, and it makes such a difference.
Yep.
So yeah, I think meditation for different people are different things.
Correct. Meditation may not necessarily like what Dr. Olivia said, we just need to sit down in the meditative pose, putting a candle just to meditate. But in reality, other than gardening, even sportsmen, when they go on a run, feeling the breeze in the air, going on to a straight road and just simply focus on it, as they focus on their breathing, they're actually in their meditative state anyway.
Yes, 100%.
So after the more, now, we began the show in a more softer side, with gardening and all that. Now I think maybe it's time to go into a more technical part of today's topic. I think it's time because I think Dr. Olivia have prepared some slides, and I just now I went through. It's very interesting, and I think our audience might learn something through it.
Yep. So I'm going to show the slide soon. Before that,
that gives me a clue as to where.
Yeah. If not, we will be talking about meditation and gardening.
That's an entire different show.
Correct. In actual fact, talking about the heart-wise, and especially now during the Valentine's Day, I didn't know about it until yesterday when Dr. Olivia tells me about it. There's actually this thing called a broken heart
syndrome.
A broken heart.
So I'm going to show.
Hopefully, no one gets it today.
So the background to broken heart syndrome is that actually we found widows from the wars. This was in Japan. They found it. Where a part of their ventricle, which is just basically one of the chambers of the heart, there are 4 chambers in the heart. One of the chambers of the heart actually swells up, and you get this chest pain like you're having a heart attack, basically. And when you do an X-ray, you can actually see that the shape of it is different on the X-ray, and it looked a lot like the Japanese octopus pots. So the Japanese call it takotsubo's syndrome, or takotsubo heart. And this is an amazing way to prove basically that grief, anxiety, depths of depression, true emotion that's so hard to bear when you're actually clutching your chest, it changes your physiology, it changes your anatomy. In this case, takotsubo's cardiomyopathy. Now, takotsubo, or broken heart syndrome, is it will reverse. It's a transient thing. It happens for a very short period of time. Usually you get these women, but people into hospital, and you look after them essentially until they mend their broken heart, until they're able to get over the shock or the stress of whatever it is that got them there. And then you discharge them and they're fine.
So is it only apparent in women? What about men?
No, men as well.
Men as well?
We first saw takotsubos in widows of the war. Yeah.
I see. So when they recover, the heart goes back to normal.
That's right.
Interesting.
But, yeah. So, the whole point of something like this is to absolutely show that what happens here can have an effect down here. Or what happens here can have an effect in any of your organs, right? Because don't forget, your organs aren't in isolation. They're working with other organ systems as well.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. Takotsubo.
So, you have more slides coming up. What's this about the cardiovascular quality and outcome?
Okay.
So that's back to our meditation.
That's right. So, I think that most people anecdotally would be able to say that if they take deep breaths when they're stressed or whatever it may be, that they feel better. And anecdotally, we know that generally speaking, meditation can help you with stress and all that. But what about actual, real, hard science, real data? We actually know that if you go into a meditative state, that you actually drop all your inflammatory markers, tumor necrosis factor, ILB. And in this particular study that I've got up here, this is actually a 5-year study. So this is not a short study, 5-year study, and it was in a reputable journal, which is Circulation. And these people had coronary artery disease. They had issues with the vessels around their heart.
And coronary 这边说一下，它就是冠心病。大家如果没听过英文的话呢，那中文是叫冠心病。And back to Dr. Olivia.
Yeah, so this is about people who have issues, we know, with the arteries around the heart. And when they actually practice meditation, in this particular study, they were practicing transcendental meditation. They actually had a 48% reduction in heart attacks and stroke and death in those people compared to people who didn't practice meditation.
Okay.
That's almost half. That's insane. That's amazing. Like, something like this should be talked about more often by cardiologists and GPs to their patients.
No, if they are going to talk more about it, then no one will spend. They will do their meditation free at home, transcendation meditation, right?
Yeah, indeed. What's the other slide?
So maybe people will ask, what's the difference between normal meditation and transcendental meditation. 我刚才做了一些资料的这个就是查询呢，它是叫超觉静坐。It's from a practitioner called Maharishi. And he actually started in 1958 to 1965. He did a whole 10 years of a world tour in teaching and promoting this 就是在精神上和这个宗教上面他表达了他这个教导 and actually the differentiate between this transcendental meditation and other meditation is it use mantras.
That's right.
Mantras means there is a line 你会想一个很正面的一个词句 like I'm feeling good, I'm not afraid. It's
something
with
similar to loving kindness meditation, is it?
Yeah, something to do with more relaxing and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing about a mantra, just like if you hear something often enough, you believe it, right? And that's why our young people today who are getting bullied online and at school, part of it is that they can, if they're not careful, carry the scars right through to adulthood because they've been told over and over and over again when they were younger by a bully, whether it's someone at school or a parent or teacher or whatever, that there was something wrong with them, whether they were fat or ugly or whatever silly things that these people come up with. But when you hear something over and over again, you start to believe it, which is why mantras can be very important, or those gratitude journaling or something like that, where you're saying, hearing, seeing something positive about yourself, because at some point your subconscious is going to believe it, and that's what we're after.
In certain contexts, it's a little bit like self-hypnosis when you're actually hypnotizing yourself. but you're actually reconditioning your thought pattern by just simply visualizing and telling yourself over every day and every way, I become better and better. So as you like a mantra,
I like the word reconditioning, because that's what I use when I'm doing my vocal teaching as well. I said actually we have that. It's just that we've forgotten about it. 我们忘了. And then now, why we take all these courses, be it sports or yoga or meditation or whatever, whichever is good, it's all to cultivate back the right habits.
That's right. Yeah, because life is about practice. Nobody comes into this world knowing everything about everything. We're going to make mistakes, and the best thing about making mistakes is that it gives us an opportunity to get it right, to learn.
It becomes feedback for us, so we become the better version of ourselves.
That's
like Dr. Olivia version 2.1, version 2.2.
I'm already at 5.6.
Wow.
Joking.
Okay, now we can get into the second slide, the third slide.
Okay, the next one is about magnesium, role of magnesium in diabetes.
I think most people want to know when they come to see me, knowing that I am I use medications and supplements, basically anything chemical, I use it very judiciously, because my first port of call is always going to be your diet, your lifestyle, your mindset, all that kind of stuff. But medications absolutely have a role. Supplements absolutely have a role. Now, the role of magnesium in diabetes and cardiovascular disease is incredible because it is proven to drop your blood pressure, for example. And everyone sort of goes, oh, okay, yeah, magnesium. I mean, when something can be bought over the counter, for some reason, I think people don't give it the respect that it deserves. Right? It's not a drug that you can you need a prescription for. But I'll tell you one thing, when we have pregnant women coming into hospital who've got high blood pressure, and it could be pre-eclampsia, it could be pre-preeclampsia, whatever it is, we've got to get that blood pressure down because it's not good for the pregnancy, it's not good for the baby, it's not good for the mother. What do we give pregnant women? Because we cannot give them drugs. We give them magnesium sulfate, IV, because
as
magnesium, as a drip, because magnesium drops the blood pressure. Now, magnesium is notoriously difficult to absorb, which is why what it's chelated to in a supplement is very important. Magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, magnesium bisglycinate, magnesium, there's so many different things that it can be bound to. And each one of those increases or decreases how it's going to be absorbed, which is why there are some types of magnesium that you take if you want to have diarrhea, because it's not absorbed and it helps you move things along instead. So you've got to be very careful with which magnesium that you're getting. My preference are those powders where it's more than one type of magnesium. So there'll be magnesium citrate and magnesium orotate and magnesium bisglycinate, for example. And then you take it as a drink, right? And I love those because then at least I know my patient is at least getting 250 mils of water because it's so. But we absolutely need magnesium because it helps with oxidative stress. That's the kind of stress in your system when there's too much reactive oxygen species. It helps as well because it is a cofactor in over 600 metabolic processes in the body. So absolutely magnesium is going to be one of your first ports of call for cardiovascular disease, especially if you have cardiovascular disease and diabetes as well. Now, you're looking at about 350 to 450 milligrams of elemental magnesium a day if you have cardiovascular issues. And remember that magnesium is the one of plenty, but certainly the average person walking around is already magnesium insufficient.
Oh, so meaning that the actually shortage of magnesium even now?
Yes. Yeah. For the average person.
Okay.
So
what should we do? Okay, next question first. What is magnesium?
In Chinese.
美，对不起，美，这个金字边，然后还有一个很美的美，像 Olivia
很美
医生那么美的美，它就是美。
OK，
好，那这个镁呢，其实是刚才我们提到的，就是我们身体非常需要的，它有很多种功能啊。那简单的说，一些食物呢是香蕉 bananas， if correct me if I'm wrong， or 果仁 that means like those almonds and nuts， food and from veggie and from fruit， 还有五谷是什么？
金狗的。
No, 五谷 that's kind 五谷类 wheat
Oh,
or
as in 5 type of wheat.
oats, is it?
Oh,
Oats or
OK，
谷类的食物
No idea.
OK， 谷类的食物。好，刚才就是如果是缺少这个 magnesium 的话呢，从这个表 Olivia 提供的这个表呢，它会导致就是糖尿病。我觉得糖尿病也是很多新加坡人呢非常关注的。Yeah, so I've just shared with the audience on what food can we take that consists of magnesium.
So
But I think that's not enough, right?
Yeah. So instead of having an apple a day to turn the doctor away, we have 1 banana a day. That should be enough magnesium.
No, not enough. So, okay, so they actually have enough studies now to show that organic food has got about 25% more of antioxidants, magnesium in it.
Okay.
But actually, it's not that organic food has got 25% more. It's that food that's not organic, that's mass produced, actually has way less nutrients than it should.
Yep.
In other words, the reason why everybody's walking around basically magnesium insufficient, and I'd bet my bottom dollar that it's like at least 90-something% of people walking around without enough magnesium in their system, is because of our farming practices.
How are we going to address this problem?
I mean, this goes right back to politics and regenerative farming and that kind of stuff, but it's beyond the scope of each and every person. It has to be a collective thing. But magnesium would be if I had to pick just one supplement for someone to take, it'd be magnesium.
So back to what Chu Chen mentioned earlier about the Wu Gu part, I have a guest from previous week, a TCM doctor. He mentioned it's actually 5 types of grains.
Yep. Ugu, we call it grains.
Right, okay.
So now let's look at the next slides. We have vitamin D and heart disease.
Yeah, so this was a great study which actually included over 18,000 men. And it showed that the lower your vitamin D levels, the higher your risk of having a heart attack. Now, as you know, vitamin D is something that's synthesized in the skin, in sunlight. And it's not just any sunlight. The sun has to be high in the sky, such that your shadow has to be shorter than your body for you to synthesize vitamin D. That's called the shadow rule. So you can't go out at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, spend an hour in the sun and think that you've got vitamin D being synthesized. It's not.
So
what is the best hour?
Noontime.
So interestingly enough, yes, that is in UVA and UVB. That's where you will synthesize vitamin D in your skin. However, there is something evolutionary to say about this, and it's called photoprevention. Photoprevention is where you expose your skin to the blue light without UV earlier in the day, 6, 7, 8, 9, and as the sun starts to move in the sky and you get different wavelengths and frequencies of light hitting your skin, it actually primes your skin for UV so that you don't actually damage your skin as much in UV in the midday sun if your skin has been exposed prior to that. So it's something called photoprevention. So I certainly recommend that patients are seeing far more sun than they do. And I think culturally as well, we've got quite a few cultures who are afraid to be in the sun. So I think, I don't know if it's any particular type of Chinese culture, but certainly the Chinese are like that. The Indians can be like that. You know, there's this fear of the sun, which hasn't been helped in the last 30 or 40 years with the issue with the ozone layer, which has largely now sort of getting to be fixed anyway. And the government, because of, in Australia anyway, I don't know about in Singapore, but in Australia, because we have such high rates of melanoma, the government has made the sun the enemy. As opposed to the fact that there was a whole constellation of things going on at the same time. We had a hole in our ozone layer, therefore there was more UV coming through. People were not doing photo prevention because they're all in work during the work week, and on weekends they'd be weekend warriors and they'd be in the sun for like 7 hours. I mean, that's really dangerous. That, and on top of that, they now have a study that recently, the last 2 years, that actually showed that if you take vitamin B3 twice a day, you actually almost have 46%, I think it was, wait, am I getting that right? Is it 46%? Anyway, you decrease your risk of non-melanoma skin cancers. Actually, no, I think it actually is 24%. But anyway, you decrease your risk of non-melanoma skin cancers. That should already tell you that what we put inside our body makes a difference to what happens on your skin.
So you mentioned about being on out in the afternoon sun. I remember years ago when I was visiting Australia in Gold Coast, I had a friend there who runs construction work. So usually during the daytime, he'll do his work, paint up the stuff, and about noontime before he go to have his lunch, he'll bring his surfboard out to the sea to surf. Nice. So you get the noon sun. By the time he came back, he eats lunch and he come back to work again. So every day he will get his vitamin D.
Fantastic. And then there is also the fact that people use sunscreens very heavily these days. Right. The first thing that sunscreen do, obviously, is that you can't synthesize vitamin D when you have sunscreen on. But the second thing that we know now from the FDA study of 2019 and 2020, 2 studies from the FDA in the US, is that the chemicals in sunscreen, which we have been told for about 40 years do not get absorbed into the body, do get absorbed. And after one application, you can still find the chemicals in your blood 30 days later.
Oh my.
So you have
no more suntan lotion.
So I still do recommend sunscreens to my patients, but they have to be very careful what kind of sunscreen.
Okay.
I recommend the sort of more organic, natural sunscreens. To be fair, they don't spread as nicely. They're the ones that feel yucky and they're white and all that. But you can't have your cake and eat it too. The smaller the molecules, the nano particles, right? So that it spreads nicer. The more it's going to get
goes into your skin. Yeah. So that's something new to those that always applies sunscreen. So you got to look out for the right sunscreen.
That's right.
Yep.
This slide is about one of my favorite vitamins. It's called vitamin K2. Now you would have heard of vitamin K1. K1 is found in vegetables. K2 is found in animals. Okay. You cannot use K1. You have to convert K1 to K2. Now the thing about this is that not everybody can. Some people have a genetic SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, that prevents them from efficiently converting K1 to K2. And that's simply by evolutionary pressure. So cows only eat grass, so they have an evolutionary pressure to be able to convert K1 to K2. Humans have always had access to animals, and so we didn't have that same evolutionary pressure. Now, what does K2 do? Generally speaking, you would have heard for osteoporosis to take vitamin D and calcium. And that's because vitamin D helps you uptake calcium from your diet. And the idea is that it goes into your bones. But it doesn't. It actually gets deposited anywhere and everywhere, in your soft tissue, in your arteries. You can actually get calcification of your aorta, which is the big vessel that runs down inside your chest, right? And we know now that it's because K2 directs the calcium into the bones. So you don't have enough K2, that's when you're going to have like outside of your bones, we're going to have the calcium outside of your bones. So this study was the Rotterdam study, and it went for decades. It followed all these people in Rotterdam for years and years, and they actually found that if you had enough or sufficient K2 intake, not K1, K2 intake, you had a 50% reduction of arterial calcification, 50% reduction of cardiovascular death, and 25% reduction of all-cause mortality, which means dying for any reason.
So how can we get more vitamin K2? Any supermarket that sells them?
Sure, but let's talk about the food sources first. So the
okay.
food sources would be, my preference is grass-fed, grass-finished beef liver.
Beef
Followed
liver? Only
liver.
beef liver or any type of liver?
No, then followed by any liver.
Oh,
or any
okay.
or any fatty organ. So brains, liver. Then you can also look at other organs, kidneys, hearts, lungs. It's not really the kind of food that most people would eat, right? Unfortunately. So I personally was trying to re-educate my palate to eat more liver. So I started having freeze-dried liver snacks. That didn't quite work. So 6 months of that, and I wound up buying organic, grass-fed, grass-finished beef liver capsules. So they take the liver, they desiccate it, and then they put it into capsules. So I have that.
Guess what my wife said?
What?
Yucks.
Yuck.
So is that anything to, replace this liver if,
Yes.
people out there, they are not, they can, once they hear liver, they're like,
yeah, so essentially vitamin K2 is a fat-soluble vitamin, along with vitamin A, D, E, and K. These are your 4 fat-soluble vitamins, which means that if you eat animal fat, a good animal fat, mind you, if you eat, non-organic, non-grass-fed, non-grass-finished, then, the type of fat that they have is actually more oxidative than not. If you have good animal fat, then you're going to get your K2 in there as well.
It's like chicken from a farm and chicken from a free range is different.
100%.
In that sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat chicken from farm, even if you paid me. I wouldn't do it. I don't touch it.
Now, there's one of our audience asked this question. 会有人心脏病发作，我们应该要如何
Yeah, this is very general public question. Like, what if someone's
had a heart attack
on the spot have a heart attack? How should we do very impromptu kind of, help besides calling the
911
hospital? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a hard one. I mean, look, I think that everybody should learn how to do CPR. Full stop, end of story. In a CPR course, they obviously tell you, it's called Doctor's ABC. You're looking for signs of danger. You ask for a response from the patient. You make sure that the area is clear of electrical wires or water or whatever it is. And then you're looking for airway and breathing and circulation. These are all things that they will teach you in the course. I think that it would be a disservice to anyone here to sort of go through what you would do with someone who's having a heart attack, because this should actually force you to go out there and actually do a proper CPR course.
So what's the
就是那个
difference
急救。
Yeah. So what's the difference between heart rate variability and heart rate?
So a heart rate is the average over a minute of how many heartbeats you have. Heart rate variability is how quickly you go from one type of heart rate to another. In other words, from a high heart rate to a low heart rate. How quickly are you able to jump between these heart rates? So in other words, it is and has been shown in several good medical studies that if you're able to go from high to low, low to high heart rate quickly, that means you have a high heart rate variability, and that's desirable because it means that your nervous system tone is very good, and it's actually a proxy for stress resilience. So we want high heart rate variability.
So how do we get the high heart rate
Variability?
Yeah.
So I absolutely, the mind plays a part here, because we actually have a study, and I don't know if it's up here. There's a study that actually showed that static meditative sort of activities like Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga actually increase your heart rate variability. Because people think, oh, does that mean you have to go out and exercise? Exercising is definitely part of the story, but it's about toning the nervous system, and that involves this and this. So that connection between the body and the mind.
So it's important to balance the mind, the body, the heart at the same time as well.
Yes.
Okay. So go and practice and start picking up Tai Chi if you don't have. Or like
What about when we are breathing?
Panting.
It's not panting because this is one of the
yoga practices.
Yes, where I remember that it's part of the whole package. So we have this session that we do this breathing for rapidly, non-stop for 1 minute, as fast as possible, as much as possible. And we actually feel that, we are kind of working out our body, even we are not running or whatever.
Yeah. So I haven't seen studies with regards to that and heart rate variability, but I do think that there is definitely benefits to that kind of practice, because you actually increase the amount of oxygen that's in your body. So some people, when they do that, they can actually feel quite lightheaded, and they're getting lightheaded is because they're getting too much oxygen in. So you have to actually be quite careful what you're doing. But it's really important to not only get a lot of oxygen in, but also to get that practice where you actually hyperventilate and then get too much carbon dioxide in. Because what happens when you have a lot of carbon dioxide is that your blood vessels all vasodilate. Things move around more. And then you stop and you take a deep breath in, and the oxygen that you're bringing in goes into your soft tissue much easier. So there's a lot of benefits to practices like that, but I haven't seen the studies myself.
Okay. Let's look at the next one, which is about calcification.
Calcification 呢就是钙化，就是硬化，这个动脉硬化。Too much of the 钙。Too much of the 钙，Chinese is called Chinese 就叫钙化 is the hardening.
Yes, hardening. So when we're doing coronary artery calcium scores, or when we're talking to you about plaques in your blood vessels, a lot of it is actually calcification, calcium deposits. Now this goes back to what I was saying before about vitamin K2, where if you have this issue with calcification, if I was a betting woman, I would be betting that you have a K2 deficiency or insufficiency as part of your problem. So the problem with calcification in your arteries, especially if it's in your coronary arteries, which is the arteries around your heart, is that the vessel, when it's calcified, is not very pliable, malleable. It's crunchy, so it doesn't expand as well. So if you are running and you need more blood, more oxygen to your heart, you're not going to be able to get it as efficiently. Your blood vessels can't vasodilate. Your blood vessels can't dilate properly. And it's because of this calcification, this crunchiness. And the other thing as well with this calcification is that you'll find that plaques, when you do get them, actually start forming around these foci of calcium deposits, right? Plaques in arteries don't just start anywhere. There has to be some place where they can like anchor and then start growing. And you'll actually find that in plaques, there's a lot of these calcium deposits in the plaque itself as well.
It's like, imagine, to layman term, the water pipe. After a while, you get fungus, you get rust accumulated through the piping system. So when you on your tap, it becomes difficult for the water to flow easily.
Yes.
So think of that as an example. And for the layman, usually I would say it's more related to the type of food intake that we take that causes calcification. Am I right to say that?
Yes. Yep.
So what
not only food, that means not only food, like what you take. For example, smoking is also like one
100%.
important part of it. Yep.
Yeah.
Even
absolutely.
long-term medication as well can also affect that, right?
Yes. I think that most people don't realize that heart disease and diabetes basically go hand in hand. If you're intaking too much sugar, and when I say sugar, I mean in any form, in any shape, that also means drinking too much fruit juice, for example, because you don't have the fiber that's binding the sugars, the fruit sugars, and so it's not slowly being leaked out in your body, right? You actually get this massive hit of sugar when you take a fruit juice. This spikes your insulin, and it can actually lead to heart issues like this because with so much sugar flying around in your body, you get something called advanced glycation end products, AGEs. And glycation end products is where sugar binds to protein or sugar binds to fat, which makes these crystals essentially, where you can get it as the beginning of plaque formation.
So in normal terms, when it comes to piping, usually we flush out through certain chemical to clear away the pipe that is filled with rust or fungus and things like that. But what about in human wise? How do we detox this pipe? Oh, K2, okay. So that take more liver again.
Yes. Yeah. Or vitamin K2 supplements. You can get K2 supplements. I think if you walk into any chemist now, you'll find that half of the vitamin D supplementation is actually D3 plus K2 for precisely this reason.
Okay. All right.
So look out for the K2, huh?
Now, this is a very interesting slide about gum disease.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all patients that come to me basically are told that they need to be seeing a biological dentist, not a regular dentist, a biological dentist at least once a year. The link between mouth microbiome, periodontal disease, gingival issues, gingival inflammation, and dementia, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, gut microbiome issues, rheumatoid arthritis, autoinflammation, autoimmune disease is huge. In this particular case, because we're talking about the heart today, I brought up the slide where it's showing the fact that people who have gum disease have a 2 times increased risk of having heart disease and, of course, having increased risk of having stroke. And it's a really simple fix. Go and see a biological dentist once a year. If there are any issues in the mouth at all, I think that there's half my colleagues and I are sort of debating. It's like, can you fix root canal issues? Or once it sets in, because everything is absolutely tiny, the little vessels are so small. Once you get bacteria in there, can you really truly get rid of it? So at this point in time, seeing the amount of gum disease and periodontal issues that I've seen, I'm more predisposed to, if you already have an issue, you should just get rid of the tooth. But I'm not quite sure with that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But just prevent having gum issues in the first place. Absolutely cut down on the amount of sugar that you're intaking. That is one of the biggest risks.
So start drinking more water.
Please, that would be awesome.
Especially during Chinese New Year. A lot of, a lot of sweet stuff. Yeah, sweet stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
So this one's about gut.
This is a very busy slide, and I apologize for that. But they've basically found a link between eating meat and eggs and having heart issues. Now, we used to think that it's because of the saturated fat, and now we know that that is not the case. Saturated fat, if it's the right omega-3 to omega-6 to omega-9 ratios, is not a problem at all. The more advanced lipidologists in the US, where I work, they don't talk about saturated fat anymore. That is a very 20th century idea. This idea about dietary choline and carnitine, again, two nutrients found in eggs and meat, eventually causing heart issues, is because of a gut bacteria which essentially changes this into trimethamine N oxide. Don't worry about that. Essentially, TMAO is what's going to cause oxidative stress and give you a buildup of essentially inflammation in your heart and your vessels. Now, it's a really easy thing to then say, oh, well, that means you shouldn't be eating meat and eggs. But actually, the problem here is not the meat and eggs. The problem here is the gut microbiome. If you don't have the gut microbiome, if your gut microbiome is healthy, you won't have transformation of choline and carnitine into TMA and then into TMAO via the liver. So everything below on this slide, anything below the liver, ignore that for the time being. Okay.
You have another slide also with TMA. This one, consumption of food.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a much easier slide, maybe. Okay. So let's talk about the gut microbiome. That is the problem here, not the
gut
consumption.
microbiota. 先让大家知道它是肠道的一个菌组。That's what we're supposed to have, right?
Yes.
We already have.
Yes. So essentially, we are looking for you to foster a much healthier, much more diverse and robust gut microbiome. And that's going to actually help ameliorate a lot of your problems.
How do we go about doing that?
Generally speaking, it's you remove anything that hurts it. So you're going to remove your additives and your sugars and your artificial coloring and your artificial flavoring and your using plastic and heating food in plastic and all this sort of stuff. All that hurts your gut microbiome.
Okay.
Get rid of herbicides.
If, Dr. Olivia, we got to, for this 2021, name the 3 gut microbiota killer.
Food additives.
Food additives, can you
so that'll be your
give
artificial
some
coloring.
example?
Yeah, so artificial coloring, flavoring, and preservatives.
Okay. 就是那些 the canned food, the processed food, 就是任何有色素的那些食物 killer.
There goes your cakes.
Throw
away. Save your money. Save your money. Don't waste your money and create problem.
That's right. So that's my first thing. It would be to get rid of additives. The second thing is that you want to get rid of all the herbicides and the pesticides that are residued on your food. Because even though herbicides and pesticides don't hurt a human cell, we know that by research, but it hurts the bacteria in your gut. That's exactly how they work. You spray them on plants because you're trying to kill the bad bacteria on plants. When you have residue on your vegetables that you eat, what do you think that residue does to your gut bacteria? It hurts it too.
So it's also good to look into taking more probiotic. Would that help?
So probiotics I'm very careful with because people take probiotics because they're meant to help, right? But how do they help? They help because they affect a biological and physiological change. When something is able to do that, how do you guarantee it's going to be a positive change? So you actually need to speak to someone who is an expert with probiotics to make sure you're getting the right probiotics in.
It's very difficult unless we get all organic foods, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
If not, like what Michelle said, realistically it's very difficult, but one of the easiest way maybe is to plant your own food and breed your own animals.
Well, I mean, that's extreme. You know, I think that most of us aren't going to do that. Most of us can't do that, and that has to be realistic. But this is a spectrum, and it's not a black or white. It's not I'm going to raise my own cattle and plant my own vegetables, or I'm going to get, you know, heavily sprayed and grain-fed beef from the local supermarket. This is a spectrum. If you are looking for certain products, you will find them. I actually got my organic grass-fed capsules here. I'll go grab it later on. But so and you just try your best. You know.
What about the third one?
Vitamin D. So
vitamin D.
We know that low vitamin D levels equals less diverse, less robust gut microbiome.
All right. Does our body have its own way of detoxing?
Yes. So that is your liver. Your liver is your main detoxification organ of the body. But like every other organ, you can optimize it. Right? So if you have fatty liver, if you're taking lots of medications that your liver already has to detoxify, if you're taking the oral contraceptive pill, if you're taking, you know, drinking alcohol, all these things your body has to do something with. Right? So to optimize your liver, you can take herbs or supplements or drink more water or whatever it is that are good for your liver to optimize those cells to let it do what it needs to do, which is detoxify.
Yep. So intake good things for your liver and not to overwork your liver.
That's right.
Because it's not going to work. No, 7-Eleven. It's going to work, but as age comes by, then you know, you are going to add, you know, more work to it, and it will create problem at the end.
That's right.
So what I gathered and gained today is basically at the end of the day, everything is connected. From the mind to the body, to the liver, to the gut, all the way, it's all connected, even to the heart as well.
Yeah, yeah,
and
absolutely.
By having a balanced diet and balanced lifestyle will also help our life to grow prolonged as well along the way.
Yeah, like what Dr. Olivia said, it's not going to be easy in 2021 or the future because the environment that we are living in, but it's not 100% not possible.
Yeah.
And we are trying to, like, you know, just cut down as much as possible. And like what Olivia said, do whatever we can, the best.
That's right.
For our body.
Yeah. If you only eat organic food 5% of the time, that's fantastic. But that's an extra 5% of organic food that you've had that you wouldn't have had before if you didn't start trying, you know. So
okay, no worries.
There is a brand that I actually recommend. It's called HEAL, so it's Heal by Pete Evans, and he does organic beef liver capsules that are grass-fed, grass finished.
May not be available in Singapore.
Well, we always have online shopping.
Online. Yeah, I got mine online.
Do your online research. Heal, HEAL beef liver capsule. It's capsule, so it's more tolerable.
That's right.
Anyway, we are going to have Dr. Olivia every month, so we are going to talk about more about health issues and whatever other topics every month.
Thank you for always coming on our show to share your knowledge as well.
No worries. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yep. So, and enjoy your Valentine.
Thanks.
I can give you a big flower here if you like.
So we'll see you in March again, yeah, Olivia?
All right.
Yeah, so
bye,
stay safe and healthy. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
谢谢.
So we'll see you all next week at 10:30 a.m. on the Power Tree.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.